All right, folks. So, real quick, Banggood is a distributor, a retailer, a purveyor of fine goods everywhere. They didn't make these. They didn't make this ATU-100 device. They're just selling it, and they've got a lot of stuff on their website for ham radio geeks like us. Let's take a look and see what they got here. We've got SDRs. We've got 2-meter 440 rigs. We've got Baofangs like mad. We got this thing here that's got a couple of different names. They have KTWP12 on this one, but I've seen a couple of other models of this. This one here looks pretty interesting. The Zastone D9000. But there's also some other stuff like bridges and RTL SDR dongles and kits. And let's take a look at this device in particular. So $74.99 plus $2 new user allowance. So if you're a new user, they get a discount, and there are discount links in the description down below, so you can get my discount that I'm sharing with you on this. Specifications, Type-C charging interface. Mine came with a micro USB, but you can get it with a variety of them. I don't know what this M seat is. OLED display. Antenna tuners automatically tune without any control wires, suitable for most radio stations. Push the tune button. Device contains a set of 7 capacitors and 7 inductors, which allows it with the largest configuration. So the reason why they say the largest configuration is because you can do this in a 5x5 or in a 7x7, 7 inductors, 7 capacitors, or 5 inductors, 5 capacitors, and that will change the range of tuning. One of the things that I didn't see, we typically talk about a tuner being able to tune from like 10-to-1 down to 1-to-1. This tuner, I don't really understand how they can make that claim, because your 10-to-1 out antenna might require levels of inductance, capacitance that the tuner doesn't have inside of it in order to bring it into tune. So you never know. This one will tell you the different levels of inductors and capacitors that you can put into place. So the minimum is 10 picofarad, the maximum is 1869 picofarad, and then the minimum inductance is 0.05 microhenries, and the maximum is 8.53. So you've got a range of anywhere between 8.53 and 0.05 microhenries, 1869 picofarads, and 10 picofarads. But it's the combination of these things that get you into tune. And I'll point these out later on in the video when we open up the case and see what's inside of it. So this is just one of the things you can do, and it shows you the different dimensions. So 100 millimeters, 3.93 inches wide, 150 millimeters, 5.9 inches deep, and 40 millimeters, 1.57 inches tall. And it's pretty tightly packed inside. The only thing that you could do is possibly put a bigger battery in it to get you some longer run time, because there's room inside the case for a bigger battery. That's for sure. So there will be a link to this in the description down below. It's got this big old tune button that I like. It's very tactile. It feels good to push it. You can even feel the toroids inside and whatnot springing around as you hit it. Good on-off switch that works. It does take a minute or two to boot up. This was designed by N7DDC. There will be a link to the GitHub repository down in the description below. And Banggood sent this over to me and asked me to take a look at it, and so here we are taking a look at it. One thing that I noticed right out of the box, this is a regular micro USB cable. If I plug this in, it doesn't do much. And then by accident, I kind of bent it down. Turn it off. I kind of, you kind of get it just the right angle, and it would charge. And now it's not charging at all. So let's unplug it, plug it back in. Let me get a different cable. You can tell it's different because this one is peppermint. Get that cable out of the way. We'll plug this one here in. So 2 different cables, charging problem. Let's get inside and see what there is inside. And we were going to do that anyway. So let's do it now. Let's see what we got in here. We have an interesting way of grounding. There's some goo spread down on the case. And there's a screw there, and then this mates up to, these are PCBs, And so this screw is the ground screw on the circuit board, which then gets soldered onto a solder pad on the circuit board. And then the connectors are screwed in place. And I guess this is a little bit of like, you know, thread locker. And then the center tap is wired into the board. Gets the job done there. We have the screen connection. We've got a chip there. What chip is that? I can't read that. PIC 16F 1938. Okay. That's the toroid moving around, even though the wires are secured in place. We've got a bunch of relays here. These are not the latching kind of relays that will continue to stay in their position after they are configured. So when you remove power, you lose your tune, which it's fine. I mean, it's not unacceptable, but for a battery-powered portable device, it would be nice to have latching relays on it. I'm not really complaining. I'm just kind of like mentioning it. And so now I got to get in there, and it's on the bottom side, of course. And this thing is screwed into the case, and it's got all that goo in there. That's supposed to stop these screws from coming out. We're going in. So if you haven't used one of these automatic tuners or seen the inside of an automatic tuner before, basically you have a series of inductors. All of these little wound things here are different kinds of inductors. And that just broke that solder joint. And a series of relays to swap in and out different levels of capacitance. So we've got capacitors, relays, and toroids. And basically when you are doing your manual tuner work, you are moving along the different ranges of capacitance and different ranges of inductance in order to find a match for your antenna. And this thing just does all that for you. That might never have been connected. So we'll turn the soldering iron on and fix that up. And then I need to take some notes on that. This looks like an off-the-shelf display that you would get. Not a problem there. So let's look at this. So draw a line here, and we do front. We want brown, red, white, black. So now we know how those get connected. Brown, red, white, black. Get the goo off. The goo is nice because if this is a truly portable device, which it's battery powered, so it should be, then you're going to want to put it in a backpack and kind of forget about it. And if you do that, you're going to loosen up those connections. Okay, what we lost was one of the standoffs, and what it looks like is those standoffs are actually glued in place. So now it's all apart like that, and it's interesting that the standoffs are glued in place. The charging circuit is soldered to the circuit board up front, so pretty ingenious design, but doesn't help when you've got to make a repair. I need to get a picture of that, so hang tight for a second. Okay, one of the cool things about having digital cameras is you can just take pictures of the stuff that you want to mess with and then get to messing with it. It would have been really easy to just screw through the bottom of the board and use some countersunk screws. Maybe we'll do that in a future project. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how they did this. what I'm trying to do is get to the USB connector to reset those connections. Because my assumption is, oh, interesting. Nope, not enough power input to do that. And it started screaming pretty quick. So what was the problem? The problem was the light? The problem was the LED? She just lit right up. And that battery is glued in there really well. You gotta be real careful when you're working with these batteries. I'm almost thinking it might not be worth it to mess with that battery right there in that state. All right, I grabbed some short little jumper wires and I'm gonna put these guys together here. All right, now those are safe enough. Now we can try this power connection again. And of course it's charging just fine. So the only thing that I can imagine at this point is that was a bad solder joint. So now we need to start putting this thing back together. I was hoping for something a little harder to fix. But we're not done yet, so anything's possible. I think once this thing gets together, there's a whole lot more holding it than just the screws and the glues. Okay, that board just slid right into place and made a connection on that switch. That one there is good. Which is why I'm not worried about all that hot snot they've got everywhere. This is why you save all your solder legs. That wire is just short enough that you would heat both sides of it. Let's test it one more time, see if we're still charging. And we are still charging, excellent. All right, so we need brown, and then we need red, and then we need white, and then we need black. And those will definitely come back off again. So we'll have to figure out some way of gluing that together. And let's try it out. All right, and we are on and running. Excellent. It takes a scary long time to boot when you're trying to validate that your repairs have gone well. Let's get this here screwed back together. And I guess I should have done that first. That screw's not going to work anymore because we lost another one of those guys. But it is soldered to this on-off switch here, so I'm not worried about that so much. Yep, that's just spinning. All right, back to the notes. Still charging, perfect. All right, I'm gonna get my hot glue gun warmed up. I'll get that taken care of. I'll put the case back on. I'm going to skip these ones here, and I'm gonna skip all of this hot snot here. And maybe in the future I will do an upgrade and drill through the bottom of the case and screw those standoffs in properly. But for now, I'm leaving them out because I want to play. Okay, so we got it all back together, and it still works. So now, what we have on the back here is a side to plug your antenna into and a side to plug your radio into. And that's all there is. Charge it in the front, connect it in the back. Let's get it over to the radio. What we need to pay attention to is the 7300 and the antenna tuner parked over here. I've got the FT8 80 meter frequency tuned in. This is my DX Commander 40 meter antenna. And so I'm gonna leave the tuner the way it is. I'm gonna hit tune and we'll see the SWR. SWR is 2.5. And then what I wanna do now is I wanna hit the tune button and hold it for a second, which will put it into tune mode. And she clicks right on through, and we're at 1.86 on an antenna that's not really resonant on 80 meters. I'm really pushing a 40 meter element pretty hard to do that. 1.87 to 1 SWR. We are 90% efficient after the tuner is in. And that's some useful information that's there. And then it'll tell us that the capacitance is 1790 and we have 0.5 microhenries of inductance. So I'm going to hit reset. We'll hit tune again, and we're 11 watts out, 9.99 to 1 SWR, so not good. Tune. All right, we're back down to 1.85 to 1 SWR, 66 watts out, 91% efficiency. So not terribly bad. Let's change bands over to 40 meter, and we will reset, which will disconnect all of the relays inside, and we'll hit tune, and we're at 1.4 to 1, 78 watts out. And when I said tune, I meant tune on WSJTX. Let's do tune again here. Hold that button in for a second. 1.12 to 1, 79 watts out. All right, let's try another band. Let's try something lower. Let's do 10 meters. And we are at 1.4 to 1 SWR. Let's hit the tune button. It'll say tune. Let's tune her up. And it didn't really do much for us in terms of matching. That power meter, let's see. I've got my power turned down on WSJTX to make my ALC happy. Let's hit the tune button with the power all the way up. And we're still getting some power back. Let's go down to 12 meters. All right, 83 watts out, 1.5 to 1. And so when I switch bands on the radio, the tuner is still locked in on the old tune. So if I hit tune, we'll see this is 3 to 1, and that's 3 to 1. And now we're at 1.5 to 1. Let's reset this, and then try just the radio without a tuner. We're at 1.7 to 1, 1.66 to 1. So we hit the touch-up tune. 1.5 to 1. Let's try 17 meters. Let's reset this first. Nope. Reset. 1.8. 1.08, 1.02, 1.05, somewhere in that range. So it does the thing. That's the important part. And usually where I have some trouble is 50. And this is not... Yeah, this is 1.8 to 55. So let's try... Reset that. 1.6. So it's already pretty good. Let's tune it. 1.2. So that's the far end is 50 meters. And let's go on to the other far end is 160. Reset. And it's not happy at all on 160. It's trying, but it ain't happy. So That's probably a factor of the antenna more than it is the tuner. Sometimes the match is just too far out. It doesn't really matter what. There is a couple of things I wanted to point out. Inside the box is all that white goo. That white goo has some purpose. Make sure your connections don't fall off in transport and things like that. The standoffs inside, really not all that necessary, because once the kit is assembled, the horizontal PCB is soldered to and screwed to the vertical PCBs. So I don't even know if I want to replace those standoffs anymore. I might not. I don't know. I don't think they're necessary. I think it might help in building the kit if you started off brand new. This is a great design by N7DDC. There is a link to the GitHub repository down below. You can find the Gerber files, the schematics, the bill of materials, where you could just order this stuff as components and put it together. Might be cheaper for you to source it from Banggood through my links below. Might not. Depends on whether you've got good suppliers and good quantity discounts and that kind of thing. Battery life on this, about 2.5 hours on a full charge. Takes about an hour and a half to fully charge. That was my experience with it. Not bad overall. And because of the type of battery that it has and the type of charging input that it has, it would be really easy to charge this thing. There's no tuner memory installed in this thing. It remembers the last tune it had when you turned it off and turned it back on, but it doesn't have, like, at this frequency, this is the tune I should go to right when we get there. So if I were to key up with 3573, it doesn't have a memory for 3573 from 3 days ago when I was on 3573 to start the cycle at. It just starts over fresh and tries again. It doesn't take long to tune, but at the same point, it doesn't have any memory like other tuners have. I don't see this as a limitation. Doesn't bother me a bit. It's just one of the things I wanted to point out because somebody's going to ask about it. The model that I showed is the 7x7 model. There is a 5x5 model, 7 capacitors, 7 inductors, 5 capacitors, 5 inductors. There's also an ATU-10 for QRP use, and I've heard talk of an ATU-40, but I haven't seen it, so I'd be looking for that one also. Don't forget there is a Banggood link in the description down below where you can get a discount on this. Otherwise, there is a video right over here that I think you will enjoy next. Thanks for being awesome.